Welcome to the Freedom Club podcast, where we discover the fight for freedom, fulfillment, passion, and purpose. Your host is Curt Mercadante, Gallup certified strengths coach, an agency founder who is dedicated to coaching individuals seeking to level up their life and their businesses. The Freedom Club is about unlocking your talents, turning them into strengths, and crushing your objectives. You can learn more at curtmercadante.com. Welcome to the Freedom Club.
And welcome to the Freedom Club podcast. It is Thursday, June 28th, which means it is time for our Thursday interview segment. Every Thursday, I interview a business leader or some other all-around interesting person. Every Monday, of course, is the Monday Motivator, in which I share a short burst of motivation to help you kick your week off on the right foot. And I want to thank you for listening today, whether this is your first time listening or your 40th time listening. That's right, we have surpassed 40 episodes. We continue to grow month after month, and it's all because of you. So I have a favor to ask, like I've asked the last couple episodes. If you like what you have to hear today or on a regular basis, I would appreciate it if you shared the podcast with your friends, family, and colleagues, anyone that you know would benefit from our message of freedom and fulfillment. And if you would stop by and leave a review and a rating. That's like currency to us. So thank you very much. And today, I have a treat for you. I interviewed the Vitali brothers, Rocky and Victor. So I met Rocky and Victor a few months ago here in Charleston, South Carolina. They are serial entrepreneurs. We have a great discussion of entrepreneurship, the travails of entrepreneurships, how to deal with failure. And we also discuss this new app that they've developed called HA, which stands for How About Here. Basically what it is, it's an Airbnb for your driveway. So they go into like beach towns or crowded areas in the city. And if you have unused driveway space, you can make money by renting it out to people who want to park. So it's really a cool idea. They explain it much better than I ever could. And without further delay, here is my interview with the Vitali brothers, Rocky and Victor, here on the Freedom Club. Thank you. All right, and thanks everyone for listening. This is Curt Mercadante, and I am here with the Vitali brothers, who also, like me, live here in beautiful, wonderful, extremely hot as hell, Charleston, South Carolina. How are you guys doing today?
Great, Curt. Doing well. Thank you.
Awesome. And so, you know, here on the Freedom Club podcast, we bring a host of people from all walks of life around the world, different industries. Some are entrepreneurs, some are trying to be entrepreneurs. And the common theme is freedom. And so we're going to get into who you guys are, what you do, your app, which I think is outstanding, an outstanding idea. But the first question I always like to ask my guests is, what does the word freedom mean to you?
Okay, well, I'll take this one first. So freedom to me definitely means, and I know it's different for everyone, but mine would be definitely just travel. When I was 20 years old, I left and studied abroad in Barcelona, Spain, and it was the first time that I actually, had that like eyes closed / eyes wide open kind of moment where I felt like I was, at the edge of the earth on the Mediterranean. It was so cool. I kind of in that moment realized what I wanted to do, and it wasn't just sitting in a cubicle office all day. And that's what entrepreneurs want to kind of get away from. It's really hard for me to just sit inside all day and do the same mundane task over and over. So, the app that we created kind of gives us that freedom to run with each day, differently.
Yeah, freedom really, to me, it's happiness. That's how I look at freedom. You have to be happy with what you do. You have to explore other things and make sure that people who surround you are happy, and then I feel you can truly be free. The times when I'm free the most is typically when I would think, I'll do a quick example. There's a guy outside of our office that I look at all the time. He's a homeless guy. He sits there. I walk by him all the time. He always says hello, very nice guy. Seems, does his life could suck? Yes, but is he happy? He is. I know somebody who's a multimillionaire, They have everything they want, but I feel like they are trapped. And they're trapped because they're not happy. So really, freedom to me, it equals to happiness. You just have to be happy with what you do, and you have to kind of portray that happiness to others. And that's what I think freedom is.
Awesome. Cool. So what, that sense of freedom, you know, like you said, there's people who are trapped in a 9-to-5, and it doesn't have to be a 9-to-5, because I went several years when I was an entrepreneur where I had created my own toxic work environment. You know, I had clients who sucked and got frustrated. But, you know, as entrepreneurs, was it a sense of freedom that led you to want to own your own thing and control your own lives?
Yeah, well, this isn't our first venture. We've been doing this. And actually, Victor and I have been working together on ventures since we were about,
like teenagers.
Yeah. Opened our own little car wash out of the driveway, you know, and then went on to building food stands and onto, international apps and stuff. And I don't know, the main theme that we actually just talked about before we got on this podcast was our time in Spain. We both lived in Spain for about 6 months, and then visited each other, at those different times. And we always go back to those moments. Like we always say, like when we were in Spain, this or that, like when we were in Spain. And I don't know what it is about it, but I think that, I don't want to speak for both of us, but I feel like that's what I'm working for in this entrepreneur space, is to get back to that like a Spain kind of headspace.
Got it.
No, I agree. I'm particularly built in a way where I just cannot have a boss. I just can't. I don't want to deal with somebody. I don't want to listen to them. I want to be my own person and do what I, want to do. And that's why I'm doing this entrepreneur, route. Whether it's been taking us 15 years to try to get something off the floor, but that's the thing. You got to be persistent. We just keep trying and trying and trying. That's where we are now.
Yeah, and an interesting story that just made me think of that. Our grandfather, he moved over here from Italy. He was adopted, came over from Sicily, and he, didn't have much money, but he started working at a car dealership, and he kind of went to the boss and said, "Hey, I want to ask you for something. Can you put some faith in me? Can you give me a $500 loan to go out and buy a car and turn it into cash for you?" The boss gave him a chance. He turned that $500 into, I don't know how much, but long story short, he built up his own little empire, and he became his own boss and built his own dealership. And our father did the same thing. Our uncle did the same thing. So no one in our family has a boss, really. They all own their own dealership and whatnot. So I think it's just been in our blood since an early age. And yeah, it's just something that I can't go back to, for sure.
Yeah, our grandfather used to say we have, gasoline in our blood. We don't stop. We just keep going. We just don't shut down.
Yeah.
Stuck with me.
I had it was either an article or a video on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, and it was about overcoming fear. And there's so many people who are stuck in a workplace or a job or a career that they want to break free. They'll watch this podcast. Oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could break free, but fear is holding them back. And so I made that point about fear and overcoming fear, and fear is the number one enemy of entrepreneurs, and the reason they don't jump into it. And it's funny, anytime I post anything, there's people who respond with their excuses, right? And it's like, you just proved the point. But one guy said, and I thought of it as you were telling the story of your grandfather, he said, no, that's untrue. Fear isn't the number one enemy. Access to capital is. And I said, I'll share hundreds of stories of people who were dirt poor. I have a book here, Damon John, from Shark Tank. He started sewing. His mom mortgaged his home, and he started sewing T-shirts in his mom's home in Brooklyn. And, but people like that are either they're part of the victim society and they sit there and they make excuse after excuse after excuse. They'd rather just sit in a dark room and curse the darkness rather than finding a flashlight, lighting a candle, trying to find a solution. And that, if that's cathartic to them, that's great, but they're going to keep being stuck where they're at.
Well, and there's vocabulary that I think all entrepreneurs should have. And that's, they should take, no and I can't out of their vocabulary. And that's what, I have done. And if somebody tells me no, I don't stop. If someone tells you, oh, you can't do that. Well, let's figure out a way how we can do that. I think that's what a lot of people should, live by, because a lot of people, like you said, stuck in the 9-to-5 jobs. Oh, I wish, or oh, I can't do that, or oh, that's no. It's just no, you can't.
Yeah, and it's having that I call it two different two phrases for the same concept. Either that aha moment, or I actually created my own term years ago. I was working on Meeting Street at the History Press, which was bought out by Arcadia Publishing, and my job was to wear a shirt and tie and sit there and make cold calls all day. And I did that for exactly 2 years, because when I started, I said, I'm going to get this job 2 years and see if this kind of life is for me. And I quit it was the exact day, not one day less, not one day more. I left that job, and I created a blog called Snap Free Life. And it was created out of the idea that I needed to snap out of it and live free. And so I lived 2 years of my life with this whole idea, concept, chasing freedom. And I didn't need to chase after it, because I already found it that day that I left, because I made that decision on my own. We both went and traveled around the world, more than 30 countries, and just kind of had this snap-free life or aha moment experience, and didn't ever look back. And I told myself from that day, that was about 5 years ago, that I'd never work for anyone else in that nature again. So going strong.
So what other, I want to get to the app and what you guys are doing there, and some of the things we talked about offline, on the topic of freedom and lack of freedom. But what are some of you said you've been working together for 15 years on a variety of entrepreneurial, endeavors. What are some of them, and what brought you to this point?
Oh boy. Well, we've had a lot. Back in the day, there was a company, we were thinking very far ahead. There was a company that we started called Squeeze. And we thought we've actually had molds created and everything. So we thought we could change the industry of ketchup and mustard packets.
Wow.
Ketchup and mustard packets are plastic that you have to rip, and you can't get all the ketchup or mustard out. And you're trying to squeeze it all out. And we said, there's got to be a different way. So we actually found this mold, or not found this mold. We had this mold made to where it was called Squeeze, where you can put the ketchup in. It's the same size of a ketchup packet, but it holds 3 times more ketchup than a normal ketchup packet. And it squeezes it all out, so you don't lose anything. And it was reusable, refillable. And
I don't know, just as he's saying that, I see a common theme in our businesses, because the latest one that we're doing is about the inefficiency of unused or extra parking spaces. And that
was unused.
Unused.
Because we crunch so many numbers on how many ketchup packets were wasted every year. And if you stack them, I think the ketchup packet was invented in like 1954 or something like that. And the ketchup packets, if you stack them all the way up, it would go up to the moon. Because that's how many ketchup packets are produced and wasted. And even if you do use the ketchup packet, you still, with your little thumbs, you can't squeeze out all of that. So I don't know, we definitely...
There's a few. There was one that we both started when we first moved here in Charleston. We moved to Charleston in 2012. And we started this business up here called Local Mobile Map. And it was an app that we started. And when we came to Charleston, we realized how much of a community it was for locals. A lot of people really like the local feel of it, local businesses. And coming from upstate New York, we just didn't have that feeling. So we're like, gosh, but nobody knows about all these businesses down here. So we developed this app called Local Mobile Map, and it highlighted all the local businesses in your area. So you could see who the local businesses were, and you could go to them. And it was just an app built for locals. And we started it up, and we actually grew some traction, and we just didn't have any money to keep continuing to do it, and it kind of fizzled away, and we thought of other ones, and we kind of went. I think that's one that stuck with us, was the Local Mobile Map, because I think it still would work, and I believe it's still a good idea.
Yeah, we actually are talking with our developer now about building in, because if you go to our app and you go to the top right corner, there's a filter icon, and you can filter the parking spaces by the hour, by the day, or by the month. But what we're going to do on the road a little bit here is put a local filter on there. So when you hit the local button, it'll filter out all businesses that aren't local. And how do you define those businesses? We'll have to come to that, because Low country, local first, I know has been struggling with that line of who's local and who's not. You know,
Got it. Sure.
You have a chain of 3 restaurants. You're not local anymore. You've expanded into Asheville. So, anyways, but
yeah, it's just stuff. And you know, we grew up in the car business world, so we've always had cars to fall back on. That's one thing that our grandfather taught us, that is cars. And you know, we know cars inside and out. And you know, we'd always gamble in the car business too, and help friends and family. It's just a few businesses.
So some of the entrepreneurs, I mean, obviously not all of them have panned out. What keeps driving you forward? If one, you know, doesn't pan out, what keeps you from giving up? I mean, there's some people who are afraid to jump into the entrepreneurial world just because of a fear of even jumping in. Certainly a fear of failure. You have it right in your blood where you're not only an entrepreneur, but you're entrepreneurs, but you try stuff, it doesn't work out. You try something else. What keeps you moving forward on that?
To be honest, I don't know what else I'd do. Like, that's what I want to do. That's my purpose, is to do this, is to create a, you know, we always think about new ideas and concepts, and we'll go deep. We'll say, oh my goodness, good idea. We'll write it down. We'll come back to it a few months later. Was that really a good idea? Is it good? So this one,
we literally have a notebook. We have a notebook that of all the ideas that we've thought about and things that we want to do, and you know, how do we, you know, get them? And it's honestly, that's a good question. You know, what keeps driving me is, I don't think making it. I think it's having somebody use something that we've started, and I think that's what's driving us. Because everything that we have started, people do use it a little, but it kind of, I think our minds work in a way. It's like, all right, well, we started something. It somewhat works. Let's go try to start something else. I think we both have realized, let's start something, stick with it, and just make it work, and let's do it until it does.
Yeah, definitely something that'll benefit. You know, we don't want to create a product that's going to dump a bunch of, you know, crap into the ocean. That route, because I don't know. There's a certain pride in certain entrepreneurs that have accomplished so much. You know. At Tesla, for example, just, you know, getting rid of carbon emissions and all of that, and kind of going into a new sector. Obviously, there's always cons with some good pros, but if you weigh them out, I don't know. We feel like this business that we've chosen to work on right now has a lot of positive upsides for, you know, people, but also for the environment. Whereas that's also another theme of why that ketchup packet idea. Our product was biodegradable, so we didn't want those ketchup packets that end up in waste dumps that are
right
in the ocean. So we definitely always follow that trend, just because it is a big problem. I know a lot of groups talk about the ocean, but they're all in support for that. So we can make some kind of dent in this, you know, world.
Yeah,
that's all we're asking for.
So what? You're from upstate New York, right?
Upstate, yeah.
Which part? Binghamton. Okay, sure. Yeah. The and so, what brought you down to Charleston?
Yeah.
Funny story. It's he was here at Charleston. I've never been, but we both lived in Spain, so everything always results back to Spain. We had such a good time there. We were trying to figure out where in the United States do we want to live. We knew we didn't want to live in New York anymore. And then Rocky looks at me like, why do we want to live in the U.S.? He's like, let's just move back to Spain. I'm like, all right, yeah, I'd move back. And our mother actually said, she was like, can't you guys find somewhere in the United States that you can live, not actually go out of the country? So Rocky said, well, there's a place, Charleston. He was like, it's pretty cool. It's got cobblestone downtown, you know, carriage horses. It's on the water. It's nice weather. He was like, it reminds me of a kind of a Spanish feel. So we came and checked it out. We was here for like 3 days. I was sold on it and went back home, packed up our stuff, and moved on down and never looked back.
Nice.
Yeah. We didn't have a job. We didn't have an apartment. We didn't have anything. We literally
bummed
on a friend's couch for 2 weeks.
We slept on the beach the first night we were here.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, people will ask me, so why'd you move to Charleston? Because we moved from Illinois. And I said, have you ever been here? Like, just come here, and then I don't even have to answer your question.
You know, we are very well traveled, but the city is just spectacular.
Yeah.
It really is. There's no other city that I'd want to live in. I mean, Charleston I feel it has it all. And, it still has its charm. People are saying the charm's going away, but I don't see it.
No. Yeah. I think if you live here and you get ingrained in, all right, we're commuting from West Ashley downtown, you're doing that. Sometimes if you live here, you can get caught up in that. But, people visit here. I mean, the entire peninsula, most people don't leave the peninsula. And that has completely retained its charm. So, yeah. So I want to talk about the app. And I hate when people say, oh, it's the Uber of this or the Uber of that. But it kind of is, or it's kind of an Airbnb, right? It's that's home sharing. There's ride sharing. And the app is basically driveway sharing, right? And it's not only here in Charleston, but every city I know of. We used to live maybe quarter mile from Wrigley Field in Chicago, which pained me because I hate the Cubs with a passion. I'm a White Sox fan, but they had huge parking problems, and people would everyone would open up their backyards, everything to parking, right? And it would $5-10, you come in and you park. So tell us about your app, the name of it, where they can find it, and most importantly, what it does.
All right, yeah. So the name of the app's called HAH, H-A-H, and it stands for How About Here. So what it does, just like you said, people are coining it as the Airbnb of parking. So we're taking driveway spaces that are either unused or just not being used at that moment, or it's extra spaces. And we're putting them on our app, and you can now rent the space. And you can do it by the hour, you can do it by the day, you can do it by the month. So we built something. Let me give you a quick little background on how the idea came.
Sure.
Of us being car guys, we had a lot of cars. And I came home one day, and my wife looks at me, and I said, oh, I got a new car. She's like, well, where are you going to park it? The driveway's full. And I'm like, I said, that's something, I got to figure it out. So the car sat in the street for like 2 days. And then my neighbor, Mike, I saw him. I said, hey, Mike, do you mind if I park my car in your driveway for a couple of days to figure out where to put it? He's like, oh, Vic, take your time. So one of my other neighbors came down a couple of days later and said, hey, I thought Mike had company in town, but he said you're keeping your car in his driveway. You're more than welcome to put one of your cars in my driveway. So I said, wow. I said, okay. So I started putting cars in my neighbor's driveways. Well, long story short, I went downtown for a run one day. I couldn't find parking. I was swearing in the car. I'm like, geez, there's no 20 minutes. I was so pissed off. And then I'm running through the side streets, finally relaxed, and a light bulb goes off my head. I look around. I'm like, all these cars on the streets, all the driveways are empty. So I thought, if I could park in my neighbor's driveways, why can't other people park in other people's driveways? So I told, Rocky about it, and he was like, wow, that's pretty good. So we kind of started up as like a little hobby, did some wireframes and started a little website and started telling some people about it. And they said, guys, that's really a good idea. So we both looked at each other and said, well, maybe we should focus on this. So we thought of the idea last March, and we had it develop the app. It was, me and Rocky, and we have another partner, Jet. We developed it in January of this year. We did user testing for about 3 months. We just made it publicly launched, I think, in April.
Awesome. And how's it going? I mean, we're only not even 2 months into it. So what's it like, and what's the startup like on an app like this? There's a lot of people out there who want to develop apps and have no idea. All right, they're software guys, right, or women, and they develop the app, but then they're like, what do I do now?
Yeah, that's the hard part, and also the fun part. That's where we are now. So we both left our jobs when we launched the app because you can't do both. You can have a full-time job and launch an app properly unless you have a team behind you. But right now it's the two of us and our developer. So we left our job to devote full-time, and that's still not enough. So our days are dedicated to everything. I mean everything. I mean the web development, getting out there, meeting people, shaking hands, dealing with bugs that pop up in the app, the customer service, the welcome emails, the legal side, insurance, everything. So it's definitely a tricky process, but I think if you have the right, people, so something that we've both done improperly in past businesses is we have tried to do everything, rather than find someone who's an expert at something. So we've had to bootstrap it. So we have done everything. But now this time around, we're not going to make those same mistakes again. We're going to hire, we have who we consider the best developer in town, and he's making the user experience top notch. And then we're going to hire the best blogger. We're going to hire the best, web development team, rather than trying
to try to do it ourselves.
Yeah. That's the number one. That's the number one thing I see with entrepreneurs who come to me is they've tried. I mean, I had one guy. He was actually killing it revenue wise. He was making probably $100,000 a month, but he was killing himself. And he had put on weight. He wasn't seeing his family. And I'm like, man, he was kind of doing bookkeeping. I mean, it was just, he was overwhelmed. He was keeping stuff on spreadsheets. I think he got in trouble with the IRS. I mean, he didn't have bloggers. And so there's those real opportunity costs because there's 24 hours in the day, but if you use up all 24 of them, you're going to burn out pretty quickly and be less effective too.
Very, very quickly.
Yeah. There's a lot of truth to the, I don't want to say I follow the 4-hour work week because I can't, but something along those lines of a good balance. And one of my favorite bloggers, Mark Manson, just wrote an article published last week actually, and he talks about how to balance, or the importance of balance. So I don't know. I find that we usually do work 8, 10, 12, sometimes 14 hours. Then there's also times where we'll take a Sunday off completely, and founders of an app company will just leave our phones at home and just go on the beach with women and just chill.
Yeah, it depends on what a lot of people, what they clarify as work.
Right.
Sometimes we're sitting here working, but a lot of times we'll just get up and go take a walk down King Street or go work, walk down Broad, and we're talking and we're throwing ideas off each other. That's still working.
Yeah.
But we're getting out of the workspace and opening up our mind and seeing what else is around at the same time. I think everybody needs a little of that. Yeah,
and one story, I can't remember which one of you told it to me last week when you saw each other, was that both of you grabbed backpacks and started walking through Sullivan's Island and literally shoe leather politics, right? Getting out door to door and trying to get customers.
Oh yeah, we did that on Sullivan's, we did it on Folly, and we've learned from our mistake. Last time we did it at 2:00 in the afternoon when it was a heat index of 104 degrees out. So we were sweating. I actually had part of the flyer rush off on my white shirt, and it was all discolored because I was sweating so bad. So it bled right through my backpack. But yeah, that's what you have to do, when you're an entrepreneur. No one's going to do it for you. The right way is you just got to get out there and do it. So we went out we went out there by foot, went to the people's doors, knocked on doors, trying to explain who we are, what we do. A lot of people are hesitant sometimes, but if you can actually get somebody and they're like, wow, that's a genius idea. That's great. And that's what keeps driving us. Because as soon as somebody tells us that, we're like, we do have something. Let's just keep going forward. All the people that are saying no, it's just that one person that believes in it, and that's what sparks us. So every business owner, every entrepreneur has just inherent challenges, right? I mean, we've talked about a number of them. Finding customers obviously is a big one. You have bookkeeping, you have all the back end stuff, finding a developer, bugs in the system and all that. So everyone has all that, but then sometimes, and you're going through this now, you add the added weight and obstacles provided by our wonderful local governments, right? And Airbnb is seeing this, Uber has seen this, and no good idea, no good business can go unpunished by the government. So you're kind of facing that now. Airbnb has faced it, here in Charleston, where certain homeowners, the hotel lobby, of course, doesn't like Airbnb. Taxi drivers have tried to pass regulations, obviously, to stifle the competition. And now you're seeing it, at least in one community. It probably won't be the last community you see it in, where you're just trying to let people basically rent out their driveway. It's not like they're having tailgate parties in the driveway. It's not like they're going to have raging, crazy parties in their driveway. It's for places where people who are already coming there probably to go shopping in the local restaurants, to buy things, to contribute to the tax base. And now the government wants to come down and crack down on zoning, right?
Yeah, it's definitely something that we are going to have to anticipate. We have anticipated. We met with our lawyer, and he said, "Hey guys, it's not a matter of if you get sued or someone tries to shut you down. It's just a matter of when." Just because there are some communities, HOAs, that have their laws, and we actually talked about this before the podcast, how that relates to freedom and whatnot. Why some people want to live in a place where there's so many conditions, just
rules and regulations.
Right. That are thought to be, multi-million-dollar, paradises and whatnot. Yet you can't do X, Y, and Z. But I guess, that's just the world.
Yeah,
Paris, struggled very much with the Uber debacle, and there's some people there that liked it, some that didn't. It's just all about.
Well, and it comes down to competition too, right? If the hotel lobby obviously doesn't want Airbnbs, taxis don't want Uber. In your case, I think it's the government hates competition, right? I think there's an old bumper sticker: "Don't steal. The government hates competition." And you guys are doing something that, oh my gosh, we either got to tax this or figure out a way to earn money off this, because we're missing. You're in Charleston; they've upped the parking fees, and extended the hours. So.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research on parking in Charleston and traffic and all that, and I'm sure. Have you seen the new study that's being conducted this year for the first time in 20 years?
No.
Charleston? They're starting it this fall, actually, and it's going to be about an 8 or 9 month intensive study on parking and traffic. So we'll have some really good stats to report back to in a few months. But I think the numbers are going to be pretty staggering based on the numbers that we came up with 2014 all the way to 2018 with parking in Charleston. Like, for example, there's over 500 tickets a day on average given out in downtown Charleston.
Interesting.
Yeah, that number, I was kind of like, I don't know if I believe that. But now that our office is on King Street, we walk up and down, and we see every 3 cars has a parking ticket. And actually, funny enough, after this podcast, we're going to hit the streets, and we are starting a campaign today where we're going to start paying for people's parking tickets as part of one of our promotions. So we're going to run it for 30 days just to give it a trial. And if someone gets a parking ticket, as long as they like our page and list a space or refer a friend who lists a space, we will pay for their parking ticket.
Wow.
So we're going to choose 5 people each week and nominate them on our Facebook page.
Yeah, we want people to know we're serious. We want people to know that we're starting this here in Charleston, and we're going to make this work here. And, it's got plenty of benefits for the locals, but it's phenomenal for the people who have unused space and it's not being utilized, for them to have an extra stream of revenue. Right. So you could get a couple $100 a month in helping somebody park, and that could be enough to pay your utilities at your house.
Right.
It goes a long way. You could even just get your cell phone bill paid just by using 2 extra spaces that maybe you're out of the town for the summer because it's too hot here in Charleston. You decide to go up north to Cape Cod, and your driveway sits there empty for 3 months.
Right.
Why not go to work and just make some extra cash? But you're also helping out somebody that, this is my biggest pet peeve, is I hate going downtown because I can never find a parking spot. And when you go to a parking garage, typically it's full. And if it's not full, you got to go up to like the 3rd or 4th, 5th floor and walk all the way there. And it takes time. Time is on the essence for, me. I just don't want to waste that time. So now if I could reserve a space and know I'm headed downtown to go to dinner, and it's parked on, a street downtown that's 0.1 miles away from my restaurant, I'd probably be a lot less stressed, and it would be such a more easy transition into, when I go downtown. And that's what I hope for Trey, is really just the ease of it.
Have you, and I meant to ask this earlier, are you completely just funding this out of your own pocket? Do you have VC cash?
No, so that's, we have funded 100% of everything. So we have hustled and done anything that we possibly can. I could tell you some stories that would, make you laugh. Maybe I'll throw one in there, but we've actually, in the beginning when we first started this stuff, we would buy, I don't even want to say it, but we would go off and buy used furniture and would just resell it online to college kids that came here. So if they needed a bed or if they needed a couch or they needed stuff, we would go around and find, inexpensive stuff and just relist it back online and sell it for a profit. And it would just help us make a couple $100. But we used to go to these auctions that were right here in West Ashley every other Saturday. It was just an auction. You go and you can buy used furniture and this, that. And we just, kind of have an eye for, something. You're like, oh, wow, well, that seems pretty, that seems pretty nice. Seems pretty cheap. Let's buy it so we can make any money off it. So we've kind of done anything we can possibly do to, fund this.
Yeah, buying and selling anything that you can think of. That was when we first moved here, buying and selling furniture, mattresses, couches, side tables, desks, footstools, whatever the heck you could think of.
We bought paintings before. I mean, we've even bought a toilet.
Yeah.
We bought a blue toilet that we thought was so interesting. I've never seen a blue toilet before. It ended up being something from Italy that was like in the 1950s, and it was a nice toilet. We bought the thing for $50 and we sold it online on eBay for $700.
Wow.
And so it was just, it was unique. But yeah, for the question, we've funded everything to this point. We're still funding everything. We're also looking to hire some part-time employees, and we're going to fund that too. And we're just going to keep going at this. And
yeah.
That's such a lesson if you have just a little bit of creativity and aren't afraid to get your ass off the couch and go to an auction or sit on eBay and risk minimal dollars. There's kind of no excuse, especially nowadays. You went physically to an auction; those have been around forever. But with eBay, with some other things, there's Facebook groups now. Swap. And my wife has bought and sold things for moms. And there's kind of if you're sitting there and you don't have your last $200 and you have no money, there's kind of no excuse to not, go out there and make a few $100 at a time, or $1,000 or whatever if you find a blue toilet.
The blue toilet helped us. We've actually, he bought it. He saw the eye for it. We bought an old safe from the 1800s.
Late 1800s from the Carey Company up in Buffalo, New York. And
it was right here in Charleston.
Actually, some of your audience might know Curt Rice, who's a silhouette artist in Charleston. If you walk through the market, you'll see a lot of silhouette paintings.
Okay, sure.
He's passed away as of years ago, but he was a very famous Charleston silhouette artist. And they were auctioning off this, vault. I don't know if it's safe. It was huge. It weighed over a ton. It was bulletproof, fireproof. It was lined with mahogany wood. It was stunning. And the auctioneer started it off, and he, I saw it online. I went there, and they started off at $200. I'm sitting there. Okay. So I started raising my hand, and me and this older woman went back and forth. I ended up getting it for $600.
Wow.
And, after the guy hit Ed Vermont hit the hammer down, he said, all right, congratulations, make sure this thing's out of here by Monday. And this thing's and I'm like, oh gosh, how am I going to get this out of here? So
we actually had to call a tow truck, and they had to flatbed the safe out of there because it was so heavy. And we brought it to our garage. We put it in the garage, and we're like, well, what are we going to do with it? So we started researching it and seeing what it was worth. And I think a guy from Savannah came down.
It was a gun collector, because they don't make safes like that anymore, with that height. So it was perfect for his big rifles and everything.
And we sold it, and we made a pretty good profit on it, and that helped fund some of the business. We just put it
yeah, amazing. Yeah, so people who sit there and say there's no access to capital. You don't have access to capital. You just had access to your minds, right, and doing some work.
That's it. We just figured, what can we do to make us money? And
some people would say, that's a big risk to go to an auction and to spend money on this item and not know if you can sell it. You're never going to know. I never knew a thing about safes until buying it. And then I now have a guy in my phone called the Safe Guy. It's this guy down in Florida who called me on it. He gave me the complete history because he just loves safes. And I said, hey, if you ever buy a safe, let me know. I'll give you all the details on it. He's like an iconic safe collector. So now I consider myself versed in the safe market. So you'll never know. No one's going to say, hey, go buy it for $500 and go sell it for $3,500. You got to take the risk. But even the risk is kind of, to me, experience.
Yeah,
it's priceless.
It's the same thing that we're doing with Hop. Starting the company, starting the app. How about here? We're taking a risk. You know, it's just like any business or any entrepreneur who does it. It's a risk from day one. And do you think it stops at day one? No. Every day, it's a risk. It continues. But as long as you just keep going forward and you don't look backwards, you know, you can do it.
But risk is also associated with a bit of a negative, you know, influence behind it for some reason. To some people, when I think of risk, I honestly think of, you know, a little bit of, you know, chance something might go wrong, but also all the risks that we've taken in the past has led us exactly to where we are now. That local mobile map was a risk to it. We invested, you know, thousands of dollars in it, but it also, you know, got us in that tech space and app space, and that's all experience. So to me, risk kind of goes hand in hand with experience, and that to me is worth the money that you're spending, because it's all an investment toward your end goal. Future.
Cool. So final question. You guys are serial entrepreneurs. Ha is just the latest venture. To anyone listening who is trapped in a workplace, a career, or lifestyle in which they wish they could jump in and do what you do, but something's holding them back, what would you say to that person right now?
This is something that when I did that Snap Free Life vlog, a lot of people asked me, what was that moment? How did you know? And I said, I waited and waited and waited. And I asked these questions. I followed bloggers, Nomadic Matt, AdventurousKate.com, MarkManson.net, all these things. And I would look for the answer. But the only thing that worked for me was I went to Puerto Rico one time. And I said, by the time I leave to fly back to South Carolina, I'm going to have chosen a date to leave my job, and I'm sticking to it, and I'm going to do this path of, you know, adventure. So the thing that I would say is, don't wait for that day. Don't keep asking the questions. Just choose a date and just don't look back. I mean, there's obviously factors to consider. Student loans, which is one of the biggest excuses that I hear. I had student loans when I left. You know, I went and I'm traveling around in Egypt and India and Southeast Asia with student loans, but I did it just because, I don't know, it actually led me to paying them off faster, which I did, than if I just stayed at my cubicle and, you know, stared at the wall. So,
yeah, I think it's
just do it.
I think it's, you know, you could still do your day-to-day job, and, you know, you have an idea and you want to be that entrepreneur and get out there and go do something, but you don't have to leave your job. You know, in the beginning, early stages, you just have to work after your job is over. When your normal job is over, go to your entrepreneur job and start working. So if you work a 9 to 5, well, now you're going to work from 6 until midnight. And then maybe you're going to wake up in the morning and work 2-3 hours before you actually go into your 9 o'clock job. That's what we did for a long time. I would be juggling 2, maybe 3 jobs. But at the end goal is, I knew this was not a permanent position, and this was not going to be permanent. I knew I was working towards something that was, I believed it was greater, and I was going to make greater. And that's kind of what drove me. I said, all right, this is not what I was meant to do. What I'm working on the side is what I meant to do, and I'm going to make it happen. And then it's almost like a book. It's just like, it just flips over. It's like once you close that chapter of that book, it's like you can see, wow, like I did it. Like I got to that extra, you know, it's hard to explain. It's just you can't be held back. And I think a lot of people are. And it's once they get there, and you can get there, it's just figuring out those steps to get there.
And I would like to just end also on one quote that stuck with me since I was very young, a movie that's very irrelevant, but for some reason this quote, it's a movie called 13 Ghosts, and it wasn't very good and whatnot, but at the very end of the movie, this father looks back at his kids and he says, greatness requires sacrifice. And that's always stuck with me, because in today's world, if you really do want to get ahead for yourself personally, whether it's, you know, getting in shape or eating better or, you know, launching a business or working a full-time job and balancing aside, you know, startup, you have to make sacrifices. So that's a quote that rings in my ears over and over and over. You got to sacrifice something, give or take, you know, to get a bigger output.
I think I'm going to add one last thing into that. I think I'm going to do a quote too that I just I don't want to take up too much time, but this is stuck with me, and he knows what I'm going to say, and I've told a lot of people. I had a previous client of mine. He was in his 60s, and he came in one day. I had a very stressful day at my 9-to-5 job, and I was just stressed to the max, and he could see it on my face. And I just remember sitting down in the chair, and I'm like, whew, oh my gosh, this day has just been so long. He looks at me. He was like, son, be lucky that your days are long. He was like, I look back. He was like, I used to think days are long. He was like, my decades have flown by. He was like, I wish I could remember a day. And I sat there and I'm like, it really stuck with me. He said, remember these days. Because he said, the older you get, the faster they go.
Yeah.
And that's always just, stayed with me that, these days are precious. And every day that you waste, it's another day that you're never to get back. And that's kind of what I kept looking at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Time is a non-renewable resource. We talk about the oceans, right? But so the app is How About Here, H-A-H, I assume iTunes, Android as well.
Yep.
And do you guys have a website as well?
Yep.
Yeah, it's haparking.com.
Haparking.com. And so everyone go out, download it. You're only available in Charleston, the Charleston area right now, right? You want to grow. And obviously the corner of the market in Charleston, the Charleston area, and expand from there.
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing it, 6 months. We're really going to target here and hopefully get a lot of users signed up. And right now it's kind of the beaches and downtown where we're seeing, expansion and slowly exploding because it's the most populated areas that people want to go to. And that's kind of where we stick with our targets.
Awesome.
Yeah, so for now, what we're asking you, like you said, to sign up, but also if you have space to share, that's extra or unused, list your space. It's free to do, and you can only earn you money.
Awesome.
Yeah, or people that know people. A lot of people have all these extra spaces and think, oh, well, I don't have any extra space. But maybe their friends or their family has extra space. So, we're just trying to get the awareness out there. It just does not have to be you. If you don't have space, you probably know somebody that does have space.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for being on the show. Wish you best wishes. I'm sure we'll see each other around town here soon. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Curt.
Thank you, Curt.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.